Welcome to the Umbrella Financial Services Preparer training video. What we're going to do today is run through all of these topics. This is our agenda. We're going to make it short and sweet and just get down to what it is that you need to know. We're going to be covering how to create a tax return, 1040A, EZ, how to change the different statuses or filing statuses. How to prepare a 1040 return with income not reported on a W-2, our Schedule C, housings and Schedule A's, how to finalize a return, make sure that we don't have any errors, queue that return up for transmit, how to make sure our fees are in there, that we're charging the appropriate amount, and then also how to leverage the paperless solution in the software, which is known as PaperCut. So we're going to be reviewing all of those items. And let's just jump right into it. I'm going to pull up the software. The software will be looking a little bit different as far as the branding for next year. It's going to be all umbrella in here. So it'll look a little bit different, but it will have all of the same functionality. And what we want to do is how do we find our tax returns? How do we create a new tax return? So first of all, I'm going to launch tax returns here. And that's going to pull up a list of all of my clients in the database that I'm able to have access to. You can search for a client using any one of these column headers. So when I click on the column header, you'll see that it changes the search by type up here in the top left corner. So if I want to search by spouse's name, you can go ahead and put that in. If you want to search by last name, first name, phone number, however you want to search for a client. But if you want to create a client, a brand new return, right when it launches you into this field, you're going to put in the social and you just hit enter. Do you want to create a new return? Yes, I do. And what the program is going to do is it's going to take you through a quick 6-step process. First of all, it's going to have my filing status. So we can see we've got single, married filing, joint, head of household here. And we'll just select head of household. So we're only putting in one taxpayer for just for time's sake. And I have a head of household worksheet turned on. Was the taxpayer unmarried, legally separated? Yes. Yes. You qualify for head of household. Okay. Then it takes me into my personal information. So just to give you an idea, it's a quick 6-step process. You've got your filing status, personal information. From there, you go to your dependent information. Next is your dependent care expenses, to your income, to your credit, So if you have EIC or any credits on the return. So again, filing status, personal information, dependent information. If you have any child care, income, credits. So we're going to start out by putting in our taxpayer. Oops, helps if you can type. And we'll put a date of birth. And I'm just tabbing through here. You can see that I'm not using my mouse. You can do 99% of the tax return without having to use your mouse. And I selected Florida because it doesn't have a state tax return on here. We'll be doing subsequent videos with how to do state tax returns if that's appropriate for your office. You can check those out when they come out as well. So I'm going to click OK. And as you can see, we have in all of the information here. I'm going to put in an email address here because we are going to email this return to our taxpayer at the end of the video. And I'll show you how the email system works. So you are going to, after you put in the basic information, the second screen to verify would be number 14 has your email address as well. So down here you can see that it says enter option. What that's relating to is all of these numbers. So if on this screen, if my person was blind, I could hit 6, enter. And that's going to pull up is the taxpayer blind. It's the same thing as if I had clicked on is the taxpayer blind. Okay, So if you like to use your 10 key, you can use the 10 key very easily in this application, actually to the point of where you pretty much never have to use your mouse. I'm going to hit enter. Do you wish to enter your dependents now? Yes, I do. I'm going to go ahead and put those in. Just hit enter to pull the last name forward. I'm just making up information here. And we're going to say that we do not have dependent care expenses, just to speed up the return. If my dependent was disabled and I click yes here, there are going to be additional questions as part of my due diligence later. If they were a full-time student, it's going to ask me as part of my due diligence what school they went to and what documentation do I have to validate that. So we're going to click exit. We're good with this one. We'll add another dependent. And we're going to say 0707 of 07. And son. And no dependent care expenses. Exit. Exit. At this point, you've got a couple of options. First of all, your preparer code would be opted in here for you. Based on your login credentials, so you wouldn't have to worry about that. It would also default your signature in there if you're using the signature pad in the office. At this point, you can also scan documents into the paper cut system. So if you have a scanning utility or you're using a handheld scanner, you can click on Scan Documents. I've got a couple of items sitting here that I'm going to scan. What are you scanning? We'll say that we're doing driver's license. I'll click scan. Take the handheld scanner here. Pull the trigger. And it should pop a copy of all of our IDs in there. There's my Costco card and some other information. When you're done, you just close it. And it saves that information right into the database. And we'll access that here at the end of the return. From here, I'm just going to click exit. It's going to ask me, do you want to enter your W-2s? Let's for a second say no, that we're doing non-W-2 income. What it will do if I say that is it's going to pull up everything that is income. So this is basically line 7 through line 21 of the 1040. Okay, that's what's going to pop up on your screen. Now, if you had something that goes on line 7, but it's not a W-2, what you're going to do is click on Wages, and then click on Other. So what other goes on there? So if you had household employee income, or you had scholarships or grants or fringe benefits, you're just going to put that information in there. And if you had a household employee, it's as simple as clicking on the line, putting in the $12,500 they earned, and there it is. Okay, so there's not too much to it. There's not a lot of restriction to it. It's very easy to enter the information. If you had scholarships and grants, you just pop them in again, and it's very, very simple. If we do have a W-2 in addition to that, so let's go ahead and exit this menu. And all that we're going to do, instead of clicking Other, we're going to click New. And we're going to put our W-2 in. This is your EIN database. All of that information should be in there for you from the previous year. You just click on the list and pop it in, and it'll pull your information right into the system. You put in your wages, and we had 1,500 in withholdings. And anything else that's relevant, maybe you did 1,200 in elected deferrals, and you just click go down here. You can either click enter or escape to exit the screen when you're done with it, and then just hit enter again. It takes you back to your income. As you can see, we've got a total of $25,000 on line 7. We've got a refund currently of $3,500, and then we click enter again. And like I said, it's going to take us to our credits. Okay. So we're going to go into our questions for all taxpayers, and because we have EIC on the return, these are my due diligence questions. Very simple. So again, it's taken us right through the process. We're going to go to was the taxpayer a non-resident alien? I'm just going to hit the letter N, and that you can do N or Y for yes and no, or no and yes, or you can click on them, whichever one's easier for you. Is the taxpayer a qualifying child of another person? No. You can also see that it tells you F8. If you had any due diligence notes that you wanted to take on here, you can hit F8 and you can say, I asked a bunch of good questions. Those are my due diligence notes. And you click OK. And then, did you comply? Yes, I did. Yes, I did. Document additional questions you asked. Yes, I did. Did the taxpayer spouse? Yes, they did. And then part 2, you can see over here, it's telling you exactly what you need to do. So, does Hannah qualify another person for EIC? There's our dependent. Qualify another person for EIC. No, she's mine. And no, he's mine, our second dependent. Third part is, what documentation did the taxpayer provide you here to validate this information? Well, they brought in medical records, social services, and a bunch of other good stuff. Go ahead and click OK. What's the other document that they brought in? They brought in school report card. And we're going to go ahead and click exit and exit here. And at this point, what it's going to do is take us out of kind of our hand-holding process, and it's going to allow us to do some additional items here. So this is our 1040 for all intents and purposes. Okay, you can see each section's broken into its basically subparts. You've got your income, your adjustments, your tax, your credits, and all your other information. And that pretty much mirrors this left-hand options menu over here on the left-hand side. So these are all your categories. So if we wanted to go in, and part of our agenda is to touch on the Schedule A and how to report housing and school interest and other deductions on a Schedule A. So I'm just going to click on itemized deductions here, and this is going to give me all of my Schedule A options: medical expenses, taxes you paid, interest you paid. So if we had medical expenses, very simply, you're going to go into medical expenses. But what we wanted to focus on was housing and school interest. So I'm going to go to interest you paid. And I've got mortgage interest and what was reported on a 1098. And then you've got a deductible mortgage interest. Okay? Mortgage interest not reported on a 1098. So very simply, how did we get here again? I'm going to back up and show you how we got to our Schedule A. I go to my itemized deductions, number 4, and I go to interest you paid. And then I have my mortgage interest and points reported on. What did we pay? We put in, I don't know, $3,650. If you wanted to create supporting notes, you can see that it's giving you F10, which is your support notes section, and you could enter that information there. If you had some additional interest, you could put it there. If you had insurance premiums, right there. Very simple. I'm going to exit this menu, and I'm going to go back, and we're going to look at, we're going to continue with the other types of deductions that are common on our Schedule A. We've got medical and dental expenses. If you can read and I mean, just look at the forms that they're bringing in, you can quickly categorize this information up and put it on the appropriate line. Very, very simple to navigate. If we had medical and dental insurance expenses, you just click into here and say we put some braces on one of the kids. You just put the dollar amount in there, and you're good to go. If you had some charitable deductions, you're going to see that that is under number 4. And when you click on number 4, what were they? Were the cash contributions, If so, you just put in the total dollar amount, or you can create a list. So these were our cash contributions to charity. Going back to the original form, one of the other items we wanted to touch on were school interest expenses, and that's going to be under your adjustments. So student loan interest deductions, we wanted just to make sure that we got all the common types of loan interest on here, is number 33 under adjustments. So if I click in on there, just double click right on the line, it's going to pull up your total interest paid on qualified student loans. And let's say we paid, I don't know, $2,100. Very simply, that's going to run the calculation for you. And if you had any additional override student loan interest deduction, if you wanted to change that up as far as what your available deduction is, you absolutely can. Click exit here. And the next item, so we've gotten through our 1040. Actually, one of the things I failed to mention here is that the tax return is self-determining in terms of the appropriate 1040 to use. So if you've put on the forms that qualify for a 1040EZ or a 1040A or a full 1040, that is what will print out, and that is also what will get transmitted to the IRS. So you don't have to go in and determine which type of tax return it is in terms of the 1040 type. That is self-determining. From here, we're going to look at our Schedule C. You can access your Schedule C a couple of different ways. You can go to Income and click back on that, but we have it right next to us in line number 12. If we wanted to access our Schedule C, we're just going to double click on line 12 and say we got a new item here and we've got a Schedule C. Okay. Under here, you can either enter in a principal business code by pulling it from one of these two lists, or you can put in your own description. You do not have to do both. It is a one or the other, business code or description, or business code and description. And we're going to say that we have a landscaper, and click OK. And the business name is Cut Right Lawn Care. And he doesn't have an EIN, uses his social. And helps when you type, right? And we click OK. And from here, we're just going to click exit. All this information is correct. These are our questions for our Schedule C. 99% of the time, these do not need to be addressed in any way, shape, or form. Our accounting method is cash. Inventory method is cost. We materially participated, and our investments at risk. So you really don't need to do much here other than hit enter to go on to your next screen, where this has broken your Schedule C down further into your income, your expenses, and then if you have business use of home. Business use of home is very rarely used just because it comes off as an audit flag, and now you have to validate your use of home and your utilities and your internet and all of your usages. So that's not too commonly used just because it's an invitation for audit. But income. How do we report our income? We're simply going to click on income, then gross receipts for sale, and then put in our sales. What did we sell? We sold $5,000 worth of stuff. That was our billing. And we're going to exit this because that's really all that you need to do there. It's real simple. And then we're going to go to our expenses. Expenses are laid out very simply. If you had advertising, we'll just go ahead and hit 1, enter. Put in $250 worth of advertising. If you had a vehicle and you had mileage, where you're going to input that mileage is under car and truck. So simply click in here to car and truck. Click car and truck standard mileage, number 1. And then we're going to put new. So go ahead and click on new. And when was the vehicle placed in service? 02/01 of 12. And we drove a 9,523 miles. and we click OK. What that does is it breaks out everything that we need it to. It answers the questions appropriately, and it calculates our deduction. When I click exit, you're going to see that there's my deduction. Okay, so we already have a tentative profit and loss. We're operating negative $535. If we had some insurance, go ahead and put in 8. What was it? Was it health insurance or other than health insurance? And then your health insurance here. It was other than health insurance. If we had any depreciation, where you're going to take care of that is on line 6. And it's just like everything else, real simple. You got your depreciation module. What did we buy? We bought a new computer. When was it placed in service? 01/01 of 12 at a cost of $2,500. And number 1 here is our computer. So it selects my depreciation method, my period or time period, and percent. And then it runs all my calculation, tells me what my deduction is. I click exit. My depreciation expense, that's what I get to claim this year. So very, very simple on the Schedule C. Not too much to it. That seems to be the majority of the forms that we wanted to address. As you can see, I've added in some additional stuff that we hadn't answered on our due diligence form. So it's asking me now if I would like to do that, and I would. What that's in reference to is Schedule C documents provided by the taxpayer to prove the existence of the business. You know, whatever it is, document reconstruction, or what did they bring in to show you that they actually had a business. And that's all we got to do is select what documents they brought in. Very simply. So this next couple of minutes is just going to be for navigation purposes. How do you get around in the program to add additional forms and see what's currently attached to the return? What sort of errors, if any, do we have in the return? And then how to ultimately wrap up the return to get it queued and ready for transmission. So down here we have this diagnostic warning. So the first thing to talk about is that this program is a little bit different than other programs in the sense that if you're missing something or you've done something wrong in a form, as you've double typed something, or fat fingered something to where it makes it so outside the range that it's absurd. Let's say your federal withholdings that you put in 100,000 rather than 10,000. The program is going to notify you when you're in that field. If you've incorrectly put in an EIN to where it's in the incorrect format, it's going to notify you. If you're missing a mandatory field, it's going to notify you while you're in that form, as opposed to waiting till the end of the return to clean it up. So what these diagnostic warnings are exactly that. They're warnings. They're not things that you've necessarily done wrong. Like let's take the second one, for example. This return contains household employee income and EIC. Make sure you asked and documented any questions for due diligence. So these are mainly just warnings that says, hey, you might want to consider this because this is an audit flag. Form 8880 is included. Any taxable pension, IRA distributions, Roth. Before that date, this return must be entered on Form 8880. And that form's already there. So again, these are just basically suggestions as opposed to actual errors. So you could have things down here that doesn't mean you've done anything incorrect or missed anything. It's just basically suggestions. Okay. Navigationally, how do you add additional forms to the return instead of going through here? So if you wanted to look for a form using the form finder, it's right next to our forms completed right here. And you can search in this field using a form description in terms of like a keyword in the form, or you can actually use form number. So if you're in the box here and you type in 1099, that's going to pull up a big long list of all of our 1099s. And maybe we needed to look for a form that contained the word child. And so we simply start typing in CHI for child, and it pulls up all of our child forms. Or maybe we type in schedule. We need to put on a schedule F for farming. It allows you to pull up your schedules. Okay, very, very simple to locate forms and other items in the return. Now, forms completed is exactly that. These are forms that we've attached to the tax return that are completed, meaning there isn't anything missing from them. They're ready to go. So that's a big difference from this program as other programs, is that again, your forms are completed when you exit them, unless you haven't entered items in there like additional line items where you've left them incomplete, not because they're missing any of the required fields, but because you have additional items to input in them. Okay. When you're done with the return and you've determined that the return has everything and it's ready to be transmitted, it's a two-step process to complete the return. You have to mark the return electronic. So this is basically attaching our 8879, our bank application, getting all of our signatures. That basic process is all taken part in completed in this mark return electronic. So I'm just going to click on number 12 here, and the first thing that it's going to ask me is what type of how do they want their money? Do you want a bank check, a direct deposit, a debit card? What do you want? And we're going to say that we're just issuing a check. We're going to print it in our office, and we're going to put in the cell phone number of the taxpayer. Reason is because we're going to text message them when their check is ready to be picked up. And at this point, if you have a signature pad in your office, this is where you're going to use it. Taxpayer signature for the bank document. So again, it's just taking you right through the process. And go ahead and click save and exit. Do you want to print this now? The bank app, you absolutely want to get a copy to your customer. For my purposes now, I'm going to say no. And then we have our second taxpayer signature. So we need to go ahead and put in that taxpayer signature. And this is for the Fed, the state, the 8879. That's where we're going to do that. We're going to exit here. Do you want to print this? No, I don't. And there's one more step, is the bank application. We need to actually tell it that, or put in the ID type of the taxpayer. And 0101 of 10. And we click OK. Following errors, expiration date. I'm a ding dong. That's exactly how the program is going to correct you if you do make any mistakes. It's just going to pop up a quick dialog box, tell you what you did wrong, and you go back and you fix it. So that was a perfect example of how the program is going to correct you. When you are completed with the return, the proper way to basically zip the return up and get it ready to send off, you are going to exit the return every time. This is your only way to exit the return, is this bucket or button I'm circling with my mouse. Exit. It says what it does, and that is the way you do it. So I'm going to click exit. And you can see my fees are calculated in here currently as far as my preparation fees based off of my billing schedule. Let's say for a minute that my billing schedule was a little light on fees, and I have permission from my manager or my login to actually make adjustments to those fees. That we don't want to charge them $360. We want to charge them $560. So we're going to put in $460. And we're going to change that to $99. So now we're at $559. If you weren't doing a bank product, but you were collecting via cash check or credit card, the system is going to require you to enter payment. And you're simply going to click enter payment, and you would put in the invoice amount paid, and then you would select the payment type, cash check or credit card, and then on what date that money was collected. From here, you don't have to do that. All that you're going to do is just change it right there. So the calculated amount was a little light on fees, so we added another couple $100 to it, and now they're correct. So there's your fees. That's what's going to be on the bank application. So now I'm going to queue this return up to actually be emailed. I want to send this to them by email, so I click email, click OK, and now it's going to, when I'm done, save a PDF copy of this tax return into the email folder of PaperCut, and also into the tax return folder, which we'll be exploring PaperCut here in a second. So I'm going to exit this return, and when I'm done with the return and it's ready to be transmitted, I'm going to mark the return as complete. Has the bank application been printed? Yes, it has. And it's going to then run this tax return. Oops, I have that as a secondary process. Let me get back to the tax program. Do you wish to print the return to PDF? Yes, I do. What do you want to print to PDF? Just one copy of the federal and state, because it's going to save it automatically for me in PaperCut. It's going to then generate the PDF for me to review with my client if you choose to do so. Let's see, where's our signatures? Where's some of our signatures? All right, we've got signatures here. So there's the taxpayer signature, and there's the ERO signature right there. So they signed twice, or we signed one time at the beginning of the season. Our taxpayer signs one time for the tax return, one time for the bank app. From here, it kind of boots us out of the tax return, which is a good thing, and we then can just quickly go in and transmit that tax return. So if I wanted to transmit the tax return, I'm just going to go to e-file. From here, it's going to pull up a list. You have extensions to transmit. It's reminding me that I haven't transmitted my extensions, but I don't have any to transmit. And I'm just going to click Transmit Electronic Returns. It's going to pull up a list of everything in the that's ready to be transmitted. You can see there's our tax return we did right there in the list. Let's say for a second we don't want to transmit all of these returns. We just want to transmit one of them. You're going to delete the table. That sounds scary. It's not. It's what you do. You delete the table, and then you add the client back in. So we can go ahead and click on the column and alphabetize this, and then just click on Kevin. Click Done. And if we wanted to transmit this return, we just click Transmit, and it sends that tax return on its way. Very, very simple. Very, very easy to navigate. We're going to exit out here. So again, how we transmit tax returns is we go to e-file, click on number 1. If you want to filter the list, you're going to delete the table, delete client, or if you want to send everything, just go ahead and transmit. Okay. But what we really need to do is we need to send our last tax return, Kevin, an email here through our PaperCut utility. So we're going to click into PaperCut, and that is going to pop up this. If we needed to scan documents into an existing return without going into the return, you can just click on Tax Returns, This gives you everybody that you've done, and you can quickly go in there and look for the return we just did, Kevin Duncan, and we can scan information right in here just by clicking scan. You can use a flatbed scanner. You can see I've already got a PDF copy of the return in here. I've also got my copy of my driver's license in here. So if I wanted to email this return to this person, I just go into the email system. Instead of tax returns, I go to email. And this tells you whether or not you've sent this person an email. So I haven't actually sent them, these 5 or 6 people, an email. Just double click on the one you want to send. It's going to tell you this is the return address. I just put in a bogus email address here a while ago. And I'm going to put in what I want to transmit, which is the tax return. You can transmit, email to them 2 attachments at a time. So if I wanted to send the copy of the driver's license as well, you could just attach that there. It encrypts the message or the PDF, the attachments, using the last 4 of the social. I can change that to whatever I want it to be, maybe their first name instead of the last 4 of their social. And then you simply click send. And the email system is going to take its time. And when it's transmitted successfully, it's going to tell you the email was successfully uploaded to the server. What we're going to do is look at my email here in a second and see actually when it gets to me. So that took about 10 to 15 seconds to actually get to my email. And when it did, this is the way it comes through. It comes from do not reply DNR at tax.taxstatusnow.com. And then it will tell them, please reply to this email address if you have any additional questions. Okay, I'm going to download this and open it up here. And it's asking me for my password. So I'm going to put in Kevin, click OK. And then it opens up into what my PDF copy of the tax return. Okay, the invoice, the 8879, the 1040, all of that good stuff. So this video again was to kind of take you through a basic tax return, add a W-2 and other income not on a 1040 or that goes on line 7, but it's not a W-2. We went through our Schedule C, saw that is very basic. Did some Schedule A reporting as well as our adjustments for school interest. We did that. We finalized the return, looked for any issues, and then we changed some fees. We saw how it automatically pulls the fees in there based on what we've got in our billing schedule, as well as how we can change those. We then queued the return for transmission through our exit process. We did our signatures, and ultimately we emailed the return to the client after we had e-filed it. So that was what we had attempted to cover or wanted to cover in the video. We believe we've done that here, and we thank you very much for your time, and we'll have a couple more here coming out shortly. Thank you very much.